The human anomaly. The dimensional fold drive of the Velderi science vessel, empirical truth hummed softly as it stabilized in orbit around the blue-green planet. Chief scientist Nyx Varro adjusted her ocular implants, bringing Earth into sharper focus through the observation deck's massive viewport. Her slender, 12-foot frame cast a long shadow across the polished floor as she contemplated the world below. Another primitive species seeking admission to the galactic conclave, she remarked to her assistant, Tazven, who was busy organizing data streams on his neural interface. The Council insists we conduct a proper assessment, though I fail to see the point. The Velderi had dominated interstellar politics for 3 centuries. Their physiology evolved from the high radiation environment of their binary star system, granting them natural advantages. Extended lifespans of 400 standard years, regenerative cellular structures, and neurological processing capabilities that outpaced most known sentient species. They viewed themselves as the pinnacle of evolution, a perspective that colored their diplomatic relations. The preliminary reports indicate they've barely mastered rudimentary faster-than-light travel, Tazven replied, his silver skin reflecting the blue glow of Earth. Their first extrasolar colony is barely 30 years established. By all metrics, they're at least a century behind minimum conclave standards. And yet, Nyx Varro mused, they've petitioned for full membership rather than observer status. Such presumption. The communication array chimed, indicating an incoming transmission from the human delegation awaiting permission to dock. Nyx Varro straightened her ceremonial science robes and nodded for Tazven to accept the communication. The holographic display flickered to life, revealing Captain Maya Chen of the United Earth Alliance. Standing at only 5'7", the human woman appeared almost childlike in comparison to the towering Velderi, yet her posture conveyed unmistakable authority. Chief Scientist Nyx Varro, on behalf of Earth and all human settlements, I thank you for agreeing to this scientific exchange. Captain Chen said, her expression professionally neutral despite the barely concealed condescension in the alien scientist's gaze. My team is prepared to transfer to your vessel at your convenience. You may proceed, Captain, Nyx Varro replied. Our docking protocols have been transmitted to your navigation systems. My staff will meet you in reception chamber 4. After the communication ended, Tazven approached his superior. I've prepared the testing facilities as instructed. The gravity generators have been calibrated to Earth standard to accommodate their limitations. Nyx Varro made a dismissive gesture with her 4-fingered hand, a courtesy that will likely prove unnecessary once our assessments are complete. Their biological scans suggest a remarkably inefficient metabolism and troubling structural weaknesses. I suspect our report to the Council will be brief. The human delegation arrived with minimal ceremony. Captain Chen accompanied by 4 specialists. Dr. Kama, Genobiology, Lieutenant Rodriguez, Security, Dr. Patel, Physics, and Engineer Novak, Propulsion Systems. Each carried only essential equipment, having been informed that the Velderi vessel would provide all necessary accommodations. Welcome aboard the Empirical Truth, Nyx Varro announced, looking down at the human delegation. You will find your quarters adequate, though perhaps more spacious than you require. We've adjusted environmental controls to match Earth parameters. Captain Chen nodded appreciatively. Your consideration is noted and appreciated, Chief Scientist. We will begin comprehensive evaluations tomorrow, at what corresponds to your 800 hours, Nyx Varro continued. Rest well. The assessment protocols can be strenuous for species unaccustomed to conclave standards. Once the humans were escorted to their quarters, Tazven approached Nyx Varro. They seemed confident despite their obvious disadvantages. A curious psychological trait we've observed in several lesser species, Nyx Varro replied. They compensate for physical inadequacy with excessive self-assurance. It rarely survives objective measurement. The following morning, the humans assembled in the primary testing chamber, a vast, white room with various equipment stations positioned throughout. Nyx Varro and her team of 5 scientists observed from an elevated platform. Today's evaluations will establish baseline capabilities, she announced. We'll begin with standard physical parameters: strength, endurance, reaction time, and sensory acuity. Dr. Kamau stepped forward. Chief Scientist, we've reviewed your testing protocols. While we're happy to participate, we should note that human physiology differs significantly from Velderi norms. Direct comparison may yield misleading conclusions. The endurance trial, however, yielded unexpected results. This can't be correct, Tazven muttered, recalibrating the monitoring equipment. According to these readings, Captain Chen has maintained peak cardiovascular output for over 40 minutes without significant fatigue indicators. Nix Vero frowned, examining the data herself. Increase environmental resistance by 15%. The atmosphere in the chamber grew thicker, the simulated gravity incrementally heavier. Captain Chen continued the high-intensity movement sequence, her breathing controlled, muscles adapting to the increased resistance. Remarkable, one of the junior scientists commented. Most species would have requested termination of the trial by now. 2 hours later, all 5 humans had completed the endurance protocols at levels that defied Velderi predictions. Dr. Kamau smiled faintly at the poorly concealed surprise on the aliens' faces. Human physiology evolved on a world with significant environmental variations, he explained. Our ancestors persisted through ice ages and tropical periods, adapting to extremes rather than optimizing for specific conditions. An interesting evolutionary compromise, Nix Vero acknowledged reluctantly, though it hardly compensates for your other limitations. The cognitive tests that followed revealed another anomaly. While the humans processed information more slowly than their Velderi counterparts, they demonstrated superior pattern recognition when presented with incomplete data sets. They appear to utilize intuitive processing pathways alongside analytical ones. Tazven observed, genuinely intrigued now. Inefficient, but occasionally effective for novel problem-solving. 5 days of testing yielded increasingly complex results that frustrated Nix Vero's desire for a simple assessment. The humans proved adaptable in ways the Velderi had not anticipated, their seemingly inferior biology harboring unexpected advantages. On the 6th day, disaster struck. The empirical truth's primary reactor suffered a catastrophic containment fluctuation, sending power surges through critical systems. Emergency protocols engaged automatically, but not before the gravity generators throughout the vessel began to malfunction. In the central laboratory, Nix Vero and 3 human specialists were thrown violently as gravity shifted from Earth normal to 3 times that intensity in seconds. The Velderi scientist collapsed immediately, her slender frame crushed under its own weight. Around her, laboratory equipment crashed down, pinning 2 of her assistants, Captain Chen and Engineer Novik, though staggered by the sudden increase, remained upright. Their bodies, evolved on a world with substantial gravity and dense atmosphere, adapted instinctively to the change. Gravitational malfunction, Chen gasped, forcing the words out against the pressure on her chest. Novak, emergency controls. Moving with agonizing slowness, fighting against forces that would have shattered Velderi bones, the 2 humans dragged themselves toward the environmental control panel. Novak's fingers, thick and strong compared to the slender digits of their hosts, manipulated the emergency override. The gravity stabilized at 1.5 times Earth normal, crushingly heavy for the Velderi, but navigable for the humans. Captain Chen activated her communication implant. Chen to all human personnel. Gravity systems malfunctioning. Check on Velderi in your vicinity. Provide emergency assistance. Throughout the massive vessel, similar scenes unfolded. Velderi crew members lay incapacitated while their human guests, struggling but functional, worked to restore systems and provide aid to the fallen aliens. In engineering, Lieutenant Rodriguez braced himself against a console, sweat pouring down his face as he manually overrode safety protocols to reach the backup gravity regulators. Dr. Patel, drawing on unexpected reserves of strength, lifted debris off a trapped Velderi technician. Nix Vero, consciousness fading at the edges, watched in disbelief as Captain Chen, a being she had classified as physically inferior, lifted a fallen support beam that would have required 2 Velderi to move under normal conditions. "How?" she managed to whisper. Chen's face was contorted with effort, every muscle straining against the crushing gravity. Earth's gravity, 9.8 meters per second squared. We're built for it, evolved in it. Understanding dawned in Nixvero's superior mind. The humans hadn't been underperforming in the tests. They had been operating in conditions far lighter than those that had shaped their evolution. Their seemingly inefficient muscle density, their robust skeletal structure, their powerful cardiovascular system, all adaptations to a high-gravity world by galactic standards. As emergency teams finally reached them and restoration of normal gravity allowed the Velderi to regain their mobility, Nixvero gazed at the humans with new comprehension. "You've been holding back," she said quietly to Captain Chen. The human officer shook her head, not intentionally. "We simply adapted to our environment, as you adapted to yours. Different challenges, different solutions." Tazven, reviewing damage reports on his recovered neural interface, looked up with undisguised amazement. The reactor malfunction affected all 26 decks. There are reports of humans carrying injured Velderi to medical bays across the ship. 2 of them manually cycled airlock mechanisms designed for powered operation. Nixvero slowly rose to her feet, her perception of the universe subtly but fundamentally altered. "Perhaps," she said carefully, "our assessment protocols require revision." As repair crews worked to restore the ship's systems, the gravitational malfunction that had nearly spelled disaster had revealed what countless tests had failed to capture. The unexpected strength that lay within apparent weakness, and the danger of judging a species by standards evolved from a different star. Unbreakable spirit. The crisis aboard the Empirical Truth escalated rapidly as secondary systems began failing in cascade. The artificial gravity had been temporarily stabilized at a compromised setting, but now life support showed critical fluctuations throughout the vessel. "Main environmental processors are offline," Tazven reported, his voice strained. The bridge of the massive science vessel, normally a model of serene efficiency, had transformed into a chaotic emergency center. Atmospheric composition in sectors 7 through 12 is already showing dangerous carbon dioxide buildup. Nixvero, still recovering from the gravitational trauma, straightened her posture with visible effort. "Reroute auxiliary power from non-essential systems. Activate emergency scrubbers." "Already attempted," responded the operations officer. "The power surges damaged primary distribution nodes. We're losing compartmentalization between sections." Captain Chen, who had accompanied Nixvero to the bridge at the chief scientist's request, studied the holographic ship schematic with practiced intensity. "Your life support redundancies are centralized," she observed. "On human vessels, we maintain distributed emergency systems specifically to prevent catastrophic failure." The comment carried no smugness, merely professional assessment, but Nixvero couldn't help a flicker of defensiveness. "Velderi system architecture prioritizes efficiency. Our components rarely fail." "Until they do," Chen replied simply. Dr. Patel, who had joined them on the bridge, examined the engineering readouts. "The reactor instability is creating fluctuating electromagnetic fields throughout the ship. That's why your digital systems are failing unpredictably." Lieutenant Rodriguez added, "We need to get teams to manually override the environmental controls in each affected sector. The automated systems can't be trusted right now." Nixvero exchanged glances with her senior staff. The Velderi, for all their technological prowess, had grown accustomed to relying on their advanced automation. The concept of manual overrides for critical systems seemed archaic, almost primitive, yet now essential. "My crew lacks training for such procedures," Nixvero admitted, the words clearly difficult for her. "Our systems are designed to self-repair or activate redundancies." Captain Chen nodded, unsurprised. "My team can coordinate with your personnel. We have experience with manual operations during systems failures. The gravitational fluctuations remain problematic. Tazven pointed out. Some sections are experiencing up to 2 Earth gravities. Your people may struggle. We'll manage, Chen interrupted with quiet confidence. Right now, we need to focus on stabilizing life support before atmosphere quality reaches critical levels. Within 20 minutes, mixed teams of humans and Veldari deployed throughout the vessel. The emergency coordination revealed another unexpected human trait. While Veldari decision-making relied heavily on consensus and data analysis, the humans demonstrated remarkable improvisational leadership under pressure. In Sector 9, Engineer Novak directed a team attempting to bypass damaged atmospheric processors. The local gravity had stabilized at nearly twice Earth normal, causing the Veldari technicians to move with painful slowness. Novak, though sweating profusely and breathing heavily, continued working with methodical determination. "Hand me the molecular calibrator," he instructed a Veldari assistant who could barely lift herself from the floor. "How are you functioning?" the assistant asked, struggling to push the tool toward him. Novak managed a strained smile as he made delicate adjustments to the processor array. "Humans come from a high-gravity world by your standards. But more importantly, we train for worst-case scenarios. On long-duration space missions, we regularly practice emergency procedures in adverse conditions." Elsewhere on the ship, Dr. Kamau had converted a recreational area into an auxiliary medical bay, treating Veldari suffering from gravitational stress injuries. His hands moved with surprising gentleness for their size and strength as he applied pressure bandages to microfractures in their delicate limbs. "Your species evolved in approximately 1/3 Earth gravity," he explained to a junior scientist whose arm he was splinting. "Your bones developed for efficiency rather than durability. Perfectly reasonable adaptation for your homeworld, just different from ours." On the bridge, Captain Chen worked alongside Nixvero to prioritize resources and coordinate the emergency response. The Veldari scientist observed with growing fascination how the human officer made rapid decisions with incomplete information, a cognitive approach that would have been considered dangerously imprecise in Veldari methodology. "You're comfortable with uncertainty," Nixvero noted during a brief lull in the crisis management. Chen nodded. "Humans evolved as persistence hunters on the African savanna. We learned to make decisions based on partial tracks, changing weather, limited visibility. Those who waited for perfect information starved. An evolutionary pressure toward action rather than contemplation," Nixvero mused. "Fascinating." 3 hours into the crisis, a new emergency threatened the ship. The reactor stabilization team reported that cooling systems were failing. Without intervention, a catastrophic overload would occur within 2 hours. "The maintenance access is in a section experiencing extreme gravitational fluctuations," Tazven reported grimly. "Nearly 3 times Earth normal and rising. Even your humans can't function in those conditions." Lieutenant Rodriguez studied the schematic. The secondary access tunnel might still be navigable. It's longer but might have more stable gravity. Nixvero shook her head. "The radiation levels in that tunnel would be lethal to Veldari physiology. Our cellular structure is particularly vulnerable to charged particles." A moment of silence fell over the bridge as the implications became clear. Captain Chen exchanged looks with her team before speaking. "Human cellular recovery mechanisms are more robust against radiation damage," she said quietly. "A consequence of evolving on a planet with thin ozone and exposure to cosmic rays. We can attempt the secondary access. The exposure would still cause significant damage," Nixvero cautioned. "Your cancer risk would increase exponentially." Chen's expression remained resolute. "Modern human medicine can address those concerns. The immediate survival of everyone aboard takes priority." What followed was a demonstration of human physical capabilities that permanently altered Veldari perception of the species. Lieutenant Rodriguez and Dr. Patel, equipped with basic radiation shielding, entered the secondary access tunnel where the gravity fluctuated between 2 and 3 times Earth normal. The ship's sensors tracked their painfully slow progress through the tunnel. At several points, they were forced to crawl, their bodies struggling against forces that would have instantly pulverized Velderi physiology. Their vital signs showed dangerous strain, elevated heart rates, blood pressure spikes, stress indicators that flashed urgent warnings on the medical monitors. "They should have collapsed by now," whispered a Velderi medical officer, watching the telemetry with horrified fascination. "Their skeletal structures should be compressing under that pressure." "Human bones are incredibly dense by galactic standards," Dr. Kamau explained, monitoring his colleague's progress with professional concern but not surprise. "Our muscles evolved to move substantial mass against significant planetary gravity. What you're seeing is within our design parameters, though certainly at the upper limits." After 43 agonizing minutes, Rodriguez and Paddle reached the reactor control junction. Their labored breathing echoed through the communication system as they manually adjusted coolant flows and bypassed damaged regulators. The radiation alarms on their suits blared continuous warnings, but they worked methodically despite the knowledge of what each additional minute of exposure meant for their long-term health. Coolant flow restored to 60% capacity, Paddle finally reported, her voice ragged with exhaustion. Reactor temperature decreasing. Primary meltdown risk averted. By the time they emerged from the access tunnel, both humans required immediate medical attention. Their bodies showed signs of radiation exposure and extreme physical stress, but they had accomplished what the Velderi had deemed impossible. As the crisis gradually subsided and systems were restored to functional status, Nyx Vero found herself viewing the humans through an entirely transformed perspective. Where she had once seen inferior beings with primitive technology, she now recognized a species uniquely adapted for survival under adverse conditions, conditions that had never pressured Velderi evolution. "Your performance during this emergency has been illuminating," she acknowledged as the human delegation gathered in the ship's main conference room 2 days later. The gravity had been restored to Earth normal, a setting that Nyx Vero now understood represented significant resistance by galactic standards. "The Velderi have always valued intelligence and technological sophistication above all else," she continued, her tall frame now slightly stooped from the strain of recent events. "We've measured other species by standards evolved from our specific environmental context." Captain Chen nodded understanding. "A natural tendency for any sentient species, I think. We've been guilty of similar biases, perhaps," Nyx Vero conceded. "But recent events have demonstrated that there are many forms of evolutionary advantage. Your species possesses physical resilience and adaptive problem-solving capabilities that complement our own strengths." She activated a holographic display, showing her official report to the Galactic Conclave. The humans watched as the document detailed not only their scientific and technological achievements, but devoted significant attention to their biological adaptations, crisis management methodologies, and improvisational capabilities. "I am recommending not only full membership for humanity, but suggesting the formation of a joint Velderi human research initiative," Nyx Vero announced. "There is much we could learn from each other." Captain Chen extended her hand. A gesture that Nyx Vero now understood represented not just greeting but trust, an offering of the strong limb that had evolved on a world where falling meant serious injury. "To new beginnings," Chen said. Nyx Vero carefully took the human's hand, experiencing the controlled strength in that grip with new appreciation. "To unexpected strengths," she replied. 3 months later, the first joint Velderi human space station began operations in neutral territory between their respective sectors. Its environmental systems included varied gravity sections, allowing each species to work in comfortable conditions while gradually adapting to the other's natural environment. In the central diplomatic hub, maintained at 1.5 times Velderi standard gravity, approximately half of Earth's, representatives from both worlds collaborated with greater mutual respect than either would have imagined possible before the crisis aboard the Empirical Truth. The station's designation, suggested by Nyx Vero and enthusiastically endorsed by the human delegation, was inscribed in both languages above the main entrance. Complementary strengths. Throughout the galaxies, countless species had evolved under different pressures, developing unique adaptations and capabilities. The true advancement of sentient life would come not from competition to determine superiority, but from the recognition that diversity itself represented the greatest evolutionary advantage of all.